topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Hello and welcome to the new episode of Mindfulness in Action. My name is Dalida Turkovic, and today I am going to explore a topic that brings a little unease already as I'm just thinking about it, because it's not easy to invite grief in and then share about it live. But I have a special guest who is also a dear friend and co-founder of Mindfulness in the region, Mir. It's a project we started, and we are working on really bringing collaboration into all Western Balkan countries. A little bit about that I think I'll be sharing in further episodes, but right now a little bit about Magdalena, who is now retired. She lives in Croatia, and for over almost 30 years she worked in the prison as a psychologist and supported inmates and the staff also with mindfulness. This is one of the topics that I really like to explore with her, but today we come with a slightly different angle, and it's about grief, about aging, about just being who we are, humans, when certain topics and life situations actually begin to weigh us down. But without talking more about that, I would like to invite Magdalena into the studio. Hi.
Hi.
It's wonderful to have you here, and it's a treat to be speaking English together, but without talking about that. And I know I first want to thank you for being willing to explore this topic, as I know that we had a chat and you just suddenly said, like, what happens when we don't let grief, sadness to show up, when we block it. So tell me, what inspired you to think about this in the first place?
This idea, I called it sadness that doesn't have permission to exist, came up to me some time ago in a personal experience when I faced really difficult emotion without really having a difficult time. So it happened just not out of nowhere, but the intensity of the emotions were really surprising, but they were overwhelming. And yes, they came in the moment of my life when I'm facing aging as a situation where your opportunities really shrinken. You, please, help me with English, or just make some difference, because you know what I'm talking about, and English is not my first way of expressing such deep themes. Yeah, and somehow the pain just wanted to be touched, to be recognized, to be validated, although there were there was really no real connection with actual situation. And then I started to think how I softened that pain was compassion. Compassion which I reached for from my family. When I opened myself in a role that is vulnerable, although I was very often the one who solves things. And then it came out to me that these things are so maybe common that when you are the one who is strong, suddenly you collapse, triggered by something minor. And I just can't think of anything else that could be better response to this than compassion. Because when the pain is so huge, self-compassion is maybe not available. It's not enough. You can't do it. But when you reach for compassion, and suddenly you get that permission to be sad and vulnerable, then somehow the self-compassion can come as a way to think, what do I need now? What can I do now? But being seen and validated in the state you are seemed to me crucial. And then it opened some memories when I was the one who didn't understand the person who was in that position, from my personal life and my prison experience, where I was working with girls. This facility was in a prison system, but everything that was going on inside was much softer. A lot of soft skills and face-to-face, person-to-person communication, because it was sort of educational center, but inside the prison system. That's how it was made in Croatia. Many stories from these girls came to my mind. How things can go wrong when such strong emotions are not seen and are not validated.
Okay, thank you. First, I'm having goosebumps, and there's so much you already said. It seems like a complete story, but if you would be okay to backtrack a little bit, well, maybe if we can have a prelude and talk about that moment in the prison system and when you were working. Could you share a little bit about that? What happens with those people, and then we can maybe go into the personal story a little bit from there.
What comes now to my mind, I'm just talking how it comes to me, is one situation long time ago. I've been retired for 18 years now, so it is 25 years ago maybe. We had a girl who had a terrible behavior problems, and she was real aggressive, sometimes dangerous. And we couldn't manage her because we were not equipped for such a situation. We could only call God from the nearby prison, because inside we didn't have God, we were just us. And in one situation where we was prepared to be sent to the prison hospital because it was diagnosed as a psychiatric situation, I was the one who was preparing her things. And in that situation, you have to be very cautious about what will be put in her bag, because nothing that could be let's say, a weapon can't be here. Nothing sharp, nothing that can become a dangerous thing. So I was very concentrated, very cautious, and very disturbed by the behavior she presented, the aggression. And then I found a wallet which was empty. And the only thing that was in that wallet was a paper on which was written a date, which was, to my memory, maybe a month or two before she was sent to our facility. They could be sent to our facility after 14 years. Before that, no, because after 14 years they were not children legally. They were young adults.
14 years of age, right?
Yeah, that's right. And that was the date about 2 months ago, before she was sent to us immediately after 14. And there was a note, my first menstruation. And I felt such a cold in my heart. How much of pain and loneliness was in that paper. No one was there to get care of her. She was not. And when you read these professional papers, you can see dysfunctional families and all that. But this piece of paper just showed me how much pain was there. And she spent with us about 2 years. And we had a lot of problems. But because of that paper, I was never really angry with her. I was just cautious. I was professional in a way that I couldn't let her do things that was not. But somehow I didn't know anything about mindfulness and compassion at that time. But that was it. And when I recall these 2 years, the moments when she could make a connection, and there were some colleagues there who were not professionally trained to work with people. They were just assistants. But they had a very good, they were good human beings. And there were one special who she made a connection with, and she could manage her. Yeah. So this story just came to me, how compassion and connection can make really things better.
Mm-hmm. What happened in that moment when this story came up for you, in the moment of your personal situation? How do you connect these two stories?
I just put it in a perspective of, we are all humans. We are all humans, and somehow exposing, never mind, you are a psychologist, you're a mindfulness teacher, you have wisdom of your age, but being vulnerable and seeking for connection in this moment, I would say it's wise. It is wise.
So there it was, the story of a young woman who wasn't seen, who was not supported. She did receive perhaps compassion from that colleague that you mentioned. And there you are at the other side of the lifeline, in a way, right? Aging, it's not the period, but so what I'm assuming is in some way you felt equally not supported and not seen, which caused vulnerability. Is that correct?
Yeah, because there are moments when you want to be seen as an equal partner, but really it can't happen as it was when you were young. When your kids were young, you are in charge 24/7. Now you're not. And that's reality. And when I go back with my memory, that's why I said sadness that doesn't have permission to exist. Because on one side, yes, it's okay to seek for compassion, just to be seen in the moment of, let's say, crisis. But on the other side, there is prihvatiti, acceptance.
Mm-hmm. Acceptance of what?
Acceptance of the stage when you are not in charge 24/7 anymore.
Mm.
And that brings me the memory from my personal life. When my sister was very sick and I was balancing with my old parents and sister who were dying and traveling between flat and hospital and doing things, and was very focused and strong. And my father was insistent to get to hospital for some of his problem, and I was very firm and we're not doing it. And when now it come to my mind, it was maybe also a sadness that didn't have permission to exist, because his health problem was maybe substitution for the pain that his younger daughter is dying, which was unbearable. But I didn't get it at that time. I was focused on solving problems, on making everything work, all of us. And this memory also lessened to me that, and now I'm imagining how much things would be easier for him if my response had been softer, showing that I could understand the pain, but I didn't do that. So it opens the whole range of perspectives in such moments. The one from the person who feels pain, who is in pain, but also from others who are in their lives, in their way of seeing things. So in this mission we gave us in Mir, I think would be so helpful to teach people how important these things are, that they are not just something that comes the last because we have problems, we have things to do. Who cares if you are a little bit sad? It will pass. Be strong. Look how people are living. You are okay. Just to show how this can make our lives easier. Compassion.
As you mentioned that it was very difficult for you to access self-compassion at that time, and yet you had awareness what you needed, or that you were in a vulnerable state and that you needed connection. Well, what happened then? Did you ask for it?
Yes.
How was that received?
It was just an open conversation with my family, and after that it was somehow it became the sadness that had a permission to exist. And that itself was a relief. And somehow, when this is a context, it was revealed, it was shown, it was taken in account. Then, when you have tough days and then self-compassion really helps.
And when that, so how do you hold yourself now as you're moving from that space of not being in charge to acknowledging your own vulnerability with the life as it's coming? How does that happen for you now?
As a source of acceptance that hard days might come, that I'm not the only one. That's the big one. I'm not the only one. And that somehow still doing things that make deep sense for me is the answer. And instead of having sadness that doesn't have permission to exist, having sadness that knows how to be sad and calm.
Something happened earlier this week. I went with my mom to see a neurologist. Her nerves in her neck are really giving her a lot of problem with the movement of her arms, so the shakes and so on. And they were exploring if it's Parkinson's or not. And of course, she shared that her husband, my father, passed recently, and he just looked at her and he's like, oh, so there is another topic here. And then she mentioned something. So she's 83, and we are supposed to go to the wedding of my nephew in end of September. And she mentioned how she's afraid that she's going to cry during the wedding. And the doctor, who is also in his probably mid or late 70s, was very experienced and amazing presence as well. And he really just shared how it's impossible to hold the grief when grief wants to come out. And because she's now on medication that is really helping her manage her emotions, and she's actually holding it really well, he basically said one thing, and he said, grief works in a way where right now the medication is helping. But if grief wants to come out, it's going to come, and then there is no medication to stop it. It's actually, it might feel even worse downward spiral. And he warned us to observe on how is that moment when the struggle is happening, when that is going to come with irritability, with anger, with lack of focus, explosiveness, perhaps, and it might come even a year later. But at the moment is going to come for sure. And I'm holding that, and I'm thinking, like what well, it's not what do I do, but there is a little bit of a question. I'm still processing that information, and your story is really resonating because I hear that you're having your permission for sadness to come out decades later, right?
Mm. Yeah, when you say that grief can come out in this revealing my vulnerability, suddenly came to me that I really never properly cried when my family died. First sister, then mother, then father. Everything happened so in a year and a half, and I somehow was resolving things, taking care of everything, of them, being with them all the time. And I never really had a proper cry until 10 years later. And the trigger was really that this place where my parents and sister lived was for the first time full again with my kids, grandkids, and that was a trigger. Because this happened more than 30 years ago when we were young and my kids little. So yeah, we never know. It just surprised us. Where does it come from? Where does it come from? And all this year, the memory of my family was just a sort of warm and kind, and it's a little bit sad, but somehow okay. But it seems I needed this moment of crying for them.
Yeah.
And I'm the lucky one who could show it, express it, and go on.
How was it received? Was that a weakness, you think now, looking back at that moment when you cried in front of your
No,
kids?
no, I would say it was just, oh, Mom, everything is clear now. Yeah. And yes, it doesn't, there is something in this relationship with kids who are grown up and have their own families, their own style of life, their own problems, their own business. Sometimes it is just reality that you are on the edge, that you hear things and you have your life and they have their life. You just have to let it go. Sometimes painful, but that's it. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, there's another thing that these doctors said. I mean, like, your story is just now helping me process, because I think I didn't manage to really reconnect with myself since that visit on Tuesday, since the visit to that doctor. And I feel like there are waves as if he was talking to me as well. But I blocked almost like it, and made the focus that it was all about my mom. And I can feel tears are kind of like moving from my heart center to my throat, and sometimes stronger, sometimes weaker. They're there right now. There was one thing that he also said when he heard that my mother has this concern about crying during the wedding. He said, "Oh, but sadness is not weakness. If you think that you will be weak when you cry, then it's going to come even harder at you." And I feel it was important that it came from first the professional. There's some authority there, because that's what my sister and I were telling her already. And that he's a man, because my father did not see tears as strength. We were never allowed to cry in our family. So all of that is happening. Whenever, as children, when we would cry, he would just be very stern, and I would like hold tears and then go into this like inner sob. So I really needed to learn to cry, to just let my tears and like roll down my cheeks rather than wail, right? Because there's a different way of connecting with sadness as well. And another thing that he mentioned also was that in our region, when we talk about our culture, that you know, like, and I can say our culture, you know, like, you know what I mean. That there's the tendency that especially women will drown in grief. That when we have some suffering present, that grief will pull so deep that we will, even there on funerals, we have those who wail, right? Like those wailers, those narikache, yeah? Like women who are hired to cry, to entice everyone to cry as well. And I'm thinking, well, maybe there's a benefit of crying right there and then at the funeral and maybe release it. But also there is something cultural that makes me very cautious about how I approach sadness. And when you said that the sadness that doesn't have permission to exist, I see it as a cultural connotation a little bit, because in many ways is you're expected to go into deep sorrow after family members die, after to wear black, to be broken by sadness, not to go into life at all, and so on, especially for older women as well, in a way.
Yeah, that's a sort of, I would say, protocol how to show sadness. And really, when the real feelings comes up, we're not talking about it. So this is something that would be very helpful to teach people, that emotions are coming in real life, in daily life. They are here. They are felt in the body. We can communicate them. We can see them. We can validate them. And we can also learn how to accept them and go on, not be swept by them. You can be in grief and live life. You can be sad and still give yourself permission to have joyful moments and have telling jokes and all that stuff. So somehow I never wear black suits, and I see a lot of younger women now not wearing black anymore because it is just a protocol. It is just a protocol. And what diving into mindfulness and compassion and self-compassion gave me courage is just live with authenticity, taking care not to be rude and not to make harm, but be authentic.
Can we unpack a little bit? I mean, we talk so much. The name of this podcast is this whole series of live shows, and you know, like is mindfulness in action. And so many times I find that there are some words we take for granted. You know, it's like, oh, if we just had a little bit more space to compassion and self-compassion, and everybody understands it. Yes, that is the way. What does that mean really in real life? You know, it's like how
learn. It means learn. Tell me how. And I think teaching mindfulness in this real life way really can tell people how. It comes to me one self-help word I have for myself when I'm angry. When I'm angry, of course I'm right if I'm angry. And then I, just to prevent being rude and say something I would feel sorry for, I, with mindfulness, with training, learned to stop and talk to myself. You, in this kind of voice, you're right. Of course you're right. Of course you are right. You are completely right. And then somehow mentally I softened, and I soften my voice, and I say quietly in my mind to myself, so what if you are right? And this just helps me to change the state.
So what state comes?
And after that comes this sympathetic arousal comes down, and I'm more wise, and I can decide if this, what I'm right about, is worth insisting on, or it is not. And that brings such a big change. It doesn't mean you give up on everything. And it doesn't mean it doesn't count that I'm right. It just gives some softness that being right is not the end of the story. And and it just changes how I'll approach the situation. Even if I insist on being right, it is just a different way of telling it, different tone and voice, and it is more reasonable.
If it's not right, so what I'm still, I mean, I totally, I mean, I teach it as well, and I'm just putting the hat of someone who would really want to hold on to I am right. Because right now I have situations in life where it's really coming, like, and I'm right, and I wrestle, and then I come to, so what if I'm right? And then it softens, and then it comes back again. And it's just kind of like going into there. So what is that helps us, for someone who is not trained, let's say, supposing that mindfulness really makes it easier, and this makes sense. But I believe it's possible, even without the training of mindfulness, that there is something else that attracts people to first be curious about mindfulness and to want to explore. And once when that happens, it's kind of like there's opening and so many different tools. What else is there to say, I want to bring another thought in? I know I am right, but I know that this state of I am right is in a way wrong. What do you think that is that about?
It is just the state of excitement. There is something in anger which is addictive. In this state of being very right, very angry, and do you think right? And sometimes it is helpful because a lot of energy in it. But it is really a wisdom to discern when to use this energy and when just to stop and let this energy calm down. It just comes to my mind now, when I use this energy, in a situation when I was helping my sister with doctors, and they made some obstacle. They said they couldn't be done, and I knew that she needed it. So in this state of anger, I didn't shout, but I, in the moment, noticed the other doctor who might help me, and there was some robe there, and I went to that robe, put it away, and the sister told me, "What are you doing?" I said, "He called me." I was lying. He didn't know I'm coming to him. But this state of anger gave me courage, and to be very uvjerljiva,
Persuasive.
persuasive. Yes, he's called me. He said, "Okay." And I get that doctor. So that was the moment where the anger helped me. If I started to hesitate, I would lose the moment. So it's really so bad. If you have anger with someone close to you, and you use this energy just to tell how you are right and how he is wrong or she's wrong, it ruins relationship, which might be much more important than this issue. So it's really the training. There's no formula for that. And usually in these situations, when I think of it or teach it, I say, you always have a solution to work on a relationship, to intervene into situation, to see how you can do it if something really you don't really agree with this, or leave the situation. Sometimes you break some relationship, you go out, you change the job, you don't bother with some people. So it's always a sort of decision, and you are never, you can't get rid of responsibility. What did you decide?
So that is the core, isn't it? To live with that responsibility at any time and know I made a choice.
Yeah.
And own the choice. You see how we naturally turned the topic is grief, but we started to talk about anger. Huh?
Yeah. Because it is in human experience, everything is so interlaced. You can't put these things into labels or drawers. So it is always all together.
Yeah. And indeed, anger is really helpful to get out of grief as well. And another anecdote about my mom. So for a long time now, I know she has this. You have the sentence, so what, right? And she has this sentence, "I will not allow you." But somehow in our language it sounds a little bit more, it's kind of like nećeš ga bre, it's like you will not get it. And often she would say that, when I'm in that state, I just say, "You will not get it." And then I go and I turn the whole house upside down, and I dust and I clean, and and all my life I thought that she would say, "You will not get it," that she would say that to the apartment, to the unclean house, right? And I've been trying that strategy, but it never worked. In the end, the house always wins. It's always dirty again, and it's like I can't be in perpetual state of anger. A couple of days ago, I asked her and I said, "Mom, so that anger that you feel, and you feel it for the house, how does that really work?" And she said, "But no, I don't feel it for the house. I say that to myself." And I realized she says that to her grief, to her depression, to her state of, I can't move, I can't do anything. And that anger actually gets her into the space of, I can act, I can be in control, I can do something, I can take care of myself so much. I mean, I've been hearing this story probably for over 30 years. I think she's been in that state. And I can see that state of anger is kind of like, it's not really turned against her, it's turned towards the grief. She had 9 of her siblings died, and her parents and her siblings children as well, and so many funerals she's seen, right? And now I'm kind of thinking we have another 4 minutes to close, and I don't want to open up another topic, although I hope we are going to continue conversation in another episode. But almost like holding grief in this situation, grief and anger, if they were to face each other, for you, what would they say to each other?
My grief would say, so what? And my anger would also say, so what? Do what you can in this moment when it is here, and connect, yeah. Because it just brings you to the starting point. Connect. What is the English? What is the English word? Get soothed with someone close to you, and then you will know how to soothe yourself. And that's probably the starting point from the day we were born.
Soothing.
Yeah.
Not everyone has that privilege. Just like that girl who probably never received soothing. That girl from the prison, right?
Yeah. And sometimes it can help if you get soothed later in life. Sometimes helps it not enough. So, but we do what we can in our little space of our life and with people we meet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be really a privilege to teach people how important this can be for our well-being.
So since you are mentioning teaching, I would just like to use this opportunity just a minute before our closing to invite people to connect with us through mindfulness in the region. Our website is Mindfulness Regia, regija.org. And we are also really looking forward to connect, but really connect through the practice. There's an episode that I also talked to Peter Bonanno, if you would wish to check as well, but it's Daily Connect as well, dailyconnect.co, where we are holding the space for each other and actually being in presence of each other and allowing ourselves to connect and feel the sense of belonging. But a little bit more about that also in another episode. Magdalena, is there anything you would like to share before we close?
That's it. That was a privilege to talk about this experience and in English.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you very much. So this is Mindfulness in Action. My name is Dalida Turkovic, and see you next time.